Welcome back to What Happens If, the only channel on YouTube where we discuss what happens if. Now, today is a very important day, as it might be applicable to even some of the people in here, as we'll be discussing what happens if you don't pay your taxes. The top four things that you need to be aware of. And before we get into it, just a little bit about taxes in general. People fail to file tax returns for a variety of reasons, really. Personal or business problems, feelings of hopelessness, or fear due to an extended period of non-filing. You know, it's just like, I've already gone this deep, why not just stretch it out just a little bit more? Who knows? Just roll the dice. Anti-government sentiments, or belief that the penalty will not outweigh the expense of the trouble of filing. Because the U.S. tax system is based on taxpayers' willingness to honor their obligations, the IRS, Internal Revenue Service, does what it can to encourage non-filers to voluntarily come forward after a period of not paying taxes. Part of this strategy includes taking a voluntary disclosure into consideration when determining whether to criminally prosecute, negotiating payment installment plans, and reducing tax liability for certain needy individuals. Whatever your reason for not filing, you may want to consider the following information in order to be prepared for actions that may be taken against you. Number 4. Your creditworthiness may take a hit. If you have piles of unpaid back taxes, eventually, usually by the time you owe the IRS at least $10,000 or more, the federal government will put a lien on your property, most likely your house. You might also get hit with a state tax or one from your county. These documents filed with the county government, if you sell your home before you see any profits, the government will take what you owe first. Quite literally just putting it in their own pocket. But before that happens, tax liens show up on your credit card report as unpaid debts, and they will have a significant negative impact on your credit score. The appearance of a tax lien or liens may not prevent you from getting a loan for a credit card or card, for example, but you can probably kiss any low-interest loans goodbye for the foreseeable future. Number 3, you'll owe more. If you committed yourself to not ever paying taxes, this may not matter to you. But if you've decided you aren't going to file this year because you're tired of doing it, you may want to rethink that plan. We're not talking about filing and not being able to pay what you owe. If that's the case, don't panic. The IRS has a reputation for being pretty easy to work with, actually. But if you're feeling tax inertia, you should do what you can to pay your taxes by the April 15th deadline, or ask for a 6-month extension by filing a Form 4868. No, the ground won't open up and swallow you whole if you fail to do either. You won't likely be carted off to jail or lose your house, but you will be penalized with fees. You'll eventually learn this when you receive a letter from the IRS, according to John Gregory, a tax practitioner and founder of 1040return.com, which provides tax preparation software and tax resource for individuals and businesses. He says the IRS will calculate your income for you using the worst case, which would be filing you as a single individual with one exemption. Based upon these deductions, the IRS will calculate your tax liability with penalty and interest. In other words, if you don't do your own taxes, the IRS will do them for you, and they are a little bit less generous and more generous with the way that they reward themselves. While it may sound like a great way to spare yourself the hassle of filing your own taxes, this is hardly free professional tax help. Our friend Gregory breaks down what you'd owe if you had $30,000 reportable income in 2012 and didn't pay taxes for it until 2015. In that case, you would owe $2,653 in back taxes. About half of that sum would be due to tax penalty fees for failing to file and pay up. And we still haven't gone to the interest you'd pay. Generally, interest accrues on any unpaid tax from the due date of the return until the date of the payment. The interest rate is determined quarterly and is the federal short-term rate plus 3%. Interest compounds daily, so you would accumulate approximately $159 in interest alone. Again, the IRS, quite generous with the way that they reward themselves from unpaid taxes. They will do the work for you, but an accountant might be a little bit of a better solution. Now, before we get to number 2, I'd like to remind you that the best and only way to keep in contact and up to date with what happens if is to subscribe to the video below, as you will get your weekly update on what happens if. Number 2, you'll spend extra time and money cleaning up your mess. Assuming this was a momentary blip in judgment and you later decide to pay your taxes, you should factor in the amount of time and money it'll take to catch up. And just as an aside, the one limiting factor in this life is time. Money is abundant, but time, not so much. You can't necessarily buy your time now, can you? And also, you'll likely need to pay a tax professional more to fix your tax situation than you would have paid to file properly in the first place. Number 1, in general, your monetary life may get uncomfortable, and that is a little bit of an understatement. You probably won't go to jail, although it is possible, especially if you're extremely wealthy and the government determines you're purposely trying to defraud it. Otherwise, you're looking at various potential scenarios from having your property seized to wages garnished. At the very least, if you owe the IRS money, once you begin filing again, any refunds you get will instead go to the pile of money you owe the government. Unpaid interest will keep mounting. The IRS moves slowly, but they do move, and the longer you delay paying your back taxes, the more penalty and interest will accumulate. Now, if you want to pay your taxes but don't have the money, be honest and tell the IRS you'll pay off what you can. They're actually quite open to being worked with. It is better to be upfront, really. You can arrange to pay your debt monthly by submitting Form 9465 Installment Agreement Request. If you really don't have the ability to pay your full tax liability, the IRS allows you to settle your tax debt for less than the full amount you owe by submitting an offer in compromise. That should be a last resort though, since it's relatively rare to get this exemption. The IRS only agrees to this when it knows it probably can't get any more than the offer in compromise. It's more likely that you'll try the installment agreement request, especially if you're only behind 1 or 2 tax years. Even there, you'll end up owing extra cash, money you wouldn't have had to pay if you had paid your taxes on time. So as always, it's just better to pay your taxes. It costs about $120 to set up a monthly installment plan, which assumes you're mailing the payments. If the money comes directly out of your account, it's only $52. Just as an aside, again, so maybe our tax expert wasn't completely right when he declared that nothing can be said to be certain except death and taxes. After all, some individuals don't make enough money to file or pay taxes, and you may end up surviving not paying the IRS what you owe as long as you can live with the stress of mounting tax debts, a shrinking credit score, and continually receiving certified and registered letters from the IRS, which is extremely scary, informing you of your latest lien on your home, which, again, technically could mean that they might actually take your house. Whether your intentions are good or you really want to get out of paying your taxes, one thing is for sure, cheating death is a lot better than cheating the IRS. That does it for this week on What Happens If. I want you to comment below. Please do let me know, have you ever tried avoiding your taxes, perhaps creatively? What happened? Would you ever do that? Have you ever not done it? Well, I would want to know that as well. And also, please do come up with ideas for this channel, as I'm very open to looking at new What Happens If topics. Until next time, I'll see you soon. Take care.